Hi, my name is Irene, and on this video we are going to be exploring the use of a program called Dynamo within Revit. The first thing that we need to do is we need to define what is Dynamo. Dynamo is a software that we use within Revit to basically use programming language to design. Now, first thing first, that is not the only purpose of Dynamo. Dynamo has many extensive uses, given the fact that you basically can use programming language to create any kind of script. But in this video, we're going to focus on its use for parametric design. Now, what is parametric design? Parametric design is design where you don't make the decisions consciously yourself. Imagine, for example, that you have a wall where you want to have either undulating shapes, or maybe you want to have an arrangement of shapes that protrude in and out of your wall. Normally, you would have to design and draw each and every one of those elements, and you're making a conscious decision of how is it cut, where is it positioned, how big is it, how small is it. With parametric design, what you do instead is you create a set of parameters, a set of data. You feed that information to the computer, and the computer spits out results, which makes the process a lot easier and a lot faster. Parametric design can commonly be seen with organic, futuristic architecture. That is kind of like the most obvious use that comes up to me. But basically, any kind of design where you have what could be considered as random choices or iterative choices, parametric design can be very handy as a tool. Now, what does Dynamo do? Well, Dynamo allows you to create this parametric complex geometry using data that you feed it through a script or a set of instructions. What are the benefits of working with Dynamo? First thing first, it's great for the prototyping stage. That stage where you are just trying to figure out what kind of geometry you want to go for, or how you want things to look in general. Dynamo will facilitate you to move faster through that stage, as it will allow you to create multiple iterations. That's one of the greatest strengths. It allows you to very quickly, very easily create multiple iterations of a design. So again, for example, if you are, let's say, designing a screen and you have a general idea of how you want that screen to look, but you want to try out a couple looks, Dynamo can make creating those iterations much easier. It also helps automate tasks that are repetitive. Don't use it that way, but I've seen Dynamo very broadly used for Excel sheets. So basically take data and spit something out, something that can be very tedious. Dynamo can do that a lot faster. And it's also great for when you want to test out different outcomes with different inputs. So again, imagine that you have a box and you just want to try out different dimensions for that box. It makes it very easy to change the properties of an element and quickly see different variations of it. Again, same as the iteration. So now that we have that basis, we are going to go into Dynamo. We're going to find it on Revit, and we're going to see a little bit of kind of like the general screen and what we're working with, shall we? Hi, Tiny Irene here on the bottom left. So now that you are on your Revit screen, you will be able to find Dynamo on the Manage tab. Now, I refer to Dynamo as an extension due to the fact that Dynamo exists as its own freestanding program, but then it also exists within Revit. Preferably, I recommend working with Dynamo within Revit. It makes life a little bit easier, but one caveat to take into consideration: Dynamo likes to crash. And if Dynamo crashes, it will also crash Revit. So you want to make sure that when you're working with Dynamo, you are saving constantly just to prevent tragedies. All right. So we're gonna click here on Dynamo, and we're gonna get it going. Okay, so now that my Dynamo is open, this is kind of like the hub area of Dynamo, if you may call it that way. Now, one of the things that I really like about Dynamo is the information that you get in this front page, so to speak. So you have the traditional new, open, recent files, that kind of stuff. But then here on the right side, there's a lot of support from both Dynamo and the Dynamo community. So if you find the program a little bit challenging or too distant from what you're familiar with, all of these additional options make it a lot easier to feel comfortable with the program. So you have discussion forums where you can ask other people how they're doing certain things. You have the Dynamo website, and they also have this like getting started tutorial, video tutorials, Dynamo dictionary. So it's really handy in that sense. I also love that they have these samples here at the bottom. So if you're a little bit confused as to like how a script should look, you can kind of like scroll through these guys and open a few of them. And again, it's just going to help you get a better understanding of what the hell is going on. Finally, to wrap up this video, I'm gonna go through the getting started just to get you familiar with some of the basic terms that you need to become familiar with in order to use Dynamo. So we're gonna click here. So again, Dynamo is a script software. That means you develop a code, so to speak, then you input data into that code, and Dynamo produces something with that data. The way that script is managed is with nodes and wires. So nodes are going to be the packages of information, kind of like think about it if this would be language like the words themselves. And wires are the ways that we are going to be connecting those words. One important thing to keep into consideration is that almost every node in Dynamo is going to have an input and then it's going to have an output. That means it's going to require certain data in order to spit a result. And the way that this communication is going to happen, the way that this language is going to happen, is from left to right. So input on the left side, output on the right side. Okay, so if we move on to the next screen, say here is showing you a little bit of a breakdown of a node. So you can see on the left side, this is the input options. On the right side, there's going to be an output. And sometimes depending on the kind of node, you're going to have kind of like additional information at the bottom. You can extract different nodes, so you don't have to come up with everything. So that's the thing that I find the most important. A lot of people get scared by the idea of coding because you imagine these like hacker scenes where they're just like furiously typing in a keyboard.
We'll isolate the node and dump them on the other side of the router.
I'm trying. It's moving too fast.
It's not really like that. It's more there's a set of words that you're putting together to get a result. And Dynamo basically already has like that dictionary of nodes that you can use. So all you have to do is drag and drop those nodes to use them. Then here they're explaining how to connect them. Don't worry, we're gonna see that. Now, another important thing is in the user interface, you have basically two screens that are overlaying. One is where you are typing your code, so to speak, your script, and the other one is where a preview is going to be produced of the script. So as you type your script, behind it, you're basically going to be able to see what that script is going to be producing. Then you also have packages. So the idea of packages is, again, you are not expected to suddenly become a hacker that can write everything from scratch. Packages are scripts that have already been put together by other people, either individuals or companies, that you can just download, implement, and use. So again, once you get familiar with Dynamo, it's not that terrifying. Now here we have some tips and tricks. We're not really going to be using them for this video, but you can definitely check them out. And then very handy if you need more help. Again, they're mentioning down here that you have all of these additional resources to further explore on your own. And that's basically going to do it for this video. In the next video, I am going to take us through the basics of how to use Dynamo to produce a simple script. So thank you very much for joining in, and I will see you next time. Cheers!